Romans 5 verse 3. Paul says, we rejoice in our sufferings. What do you reckon? How do you feel about that? Do we really? I'm not sure it could ever really be so. Was the guy, a sadist is somebody who enjoys inflicting pain. A masochist is someone who enjoys receiving pain. A stoic is someone who puts up with pain. So which was Paul? What's he saying? How can you rejoice in something that causes you pain? It sounds more than a little bit unpleasant. It reminds me of that mad monk in Da Vinci Code. The guy with the barbed wire whip. Something a little bit sick, you might say. But that's a blue million miles from where Paul is. He's not suggesting that you grin and bear it. He's not suggesting that you enjoy it. In fact, he uses this strong term called komitha, which can be translated exult. Exult. So you're not just sort of putting up with something. You're actually, it pictures like you imagine a 4-year-old with his hands on his hips playing I'm the king of the castle, man. It's like you're kind of exulting in something. I rejoice in my suffering. So why is that? Well, the exulting comes out of what the suffering produces. So Paul describes the process. He says suffering produces endurance or perseverance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Now, we know that infection in the body creates antibodies. And the antibodies create a resistance against disease. They, in fact, present inoculation against the disease. And so I don't rejoice in the infection, but I rejoice knowing what the infection produces. Right? Does that work? I don't rejoice in bereavement or loss or pain in itself. And Paul uses the word thlipsis again, which in the old versions is translated tribulation, trouble. In this world you will have trouble when troubles come and my heart burden be. This stuff comes at me all the time. If your life is like my life, it's on a 20-minute cycle. Something happens to rob you of your peace, to knock you off your equilibrium, to pull the carpet from under you. The stuff happens, and the devil, the devil meant it for harm. God means it for good in me. And Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. I rejoice in my suffering, knowing maybe that God is at work in all things, working them together for good. Romans 8:28. Now this is a retrospective view, of course. Sometimes you can only rejoice in your troubles when they've gone. Don't go telling other people to rejoice in their sufferings, because they might not have yet arrived at your dizzy height of spiritual awareness. It might be to come. It's something that you have to see the big picture on. And in the ancient Hebrew narrative, Joseph arrived at the point when he realized that God meant it for good after a long process, right? And he rejoiced in the big picture. And so you can begin to understand the apparent contradiction between verse 2 and verse 3 in Romans 5, where it says, we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God, and we also rejoice in our sufferings. Because you see, the suffering and the glory are woven together. In fact, if you think about Jesus on the cross, that is a weaving together of suffering and glory in a way that we can only dimly understand. Maybe there's a connection that's stronger than we like to think. So Paul's not saying take the rough with the smooth. No, but although truly God is in both. But he's saying they both produce hope. He's saying that when the big picture is fully apparent, we can even bring joy and share his triumph even in the midst of their trials. Jesus said, rejoice in your persecution. Man, We have a lot to learn, don't we? Matthew 5:11-12. So, rejoice wherever you are, whatever's happening, no matter how bad it is right now, rejoice. Let me just give you one final thought on this. It's a cracker. You know how I love the way ancient Greek words have a modern, in modern Greek have a slightly different meaning. Well, here's one to fill your mind, all right? The word rejoice in ancient Greek, you know what that means. It just means like be happy, okay? But in modern Greek, it's the word for the bit that goes in the middle of the spin dryer that agitates. So it means wobble with pleasure. Have you got it? In the middle of the things that are going wrong in your life, okay, when you get a picture, when you get the big picture of what God's doing, wobble. I'm not going to do it. Wobble with pleasure. Agitate for joy. Because God has it in hand. And he has you in hand. And he'll never let go. Amen. God bless you.